4 bolts. So we're in.
Yes.
We're sealed up.
You are a prisoner. My prisoner.
Nothing is breaching the hull. It's the safest spot on the entire planet.
Inside the Titan is the safest spot on the entire planet. Wow, talk about hyperbole.
I got nightmares in my head, I fear. Thoughts build up until I can't feel. My mind fills up into a creature, and it haunts me somewhere much deeper. I got nightmares in my head, I fear.
Hello and welcome to True Crime Rocket Science. Now, comparing the openings of both documentaries is tough. Both feel fresh and authentic, but Implosion probably does better in nailing the opening 2 minutes of narrative. Netflix, on the other hand, although it uses a YouTuber's footage from a dive very close in the timeline to the fatal dive, the opening shot of a grey ocean under a grey sky, for me, somehow tunes into the right tone. In this analysis, we'll come back to a comparison of the two documentaries. Have any of you seen both of them, and what did you think? But we want to start off by highlighting 5 what the ifs from Implosion. Before we get to that, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do. Welcome to the many of you who have subscribed. If you're finding this analysis worthwhile, you might want to look at the playlist of almost 100 episodes. I covered this case in real time. You might want to have a look at that. A link to that playlist appears at the end of this video. And then finally, also a very big thank you to those of you who sent super thanks: Jenny White, Valerie Grasso, Alana Stitcher, G-Girl, Carl's Castle, Abominable Snowman from New Zealand, Diphonic, thanks very much, Blue Sky Denver, Franklin MC, MGJDMNJ, Alpha Shavings Works, looks like you from Hong Kong, RJS, and Noodle. Thank you very much, guys. If you want to hit this thanks button, you're more than welcome, and let's get started. So 5 what the ifs from the Implosion documentary, starting with number 1, the safest place on Earth. You've already heard the first what the if, Stockton calling the inside of the carbon fiber sub the safest place on Earth. It's a very Stockton Rush thing to say, wouldn't you say? And I guess on the strength of his charisma, you either buy it or you don't. Many did, many didn't. Incidentally, one of those who did, who sang OceanGate's praises at the time, was David Pogue. And Pogue listed 3 reasons why he supported OceanGate.
Everyone I know keeps asking me the same question. Why would you get on that dangerous sub? Well, first of all, Stockton Rush had the credentials. Second, he was emphatic that the important parts of the Titan were rock solid. Third, I was convinced by an expert, P.H. Nargeolet, the veteran deep-sea explorer who also perished in the Titan. How many times have you been?
With the last dive, 37 times.
Now, Stockton simply being emphatic that carbon fiber is rock solid, I don't know if that is the most convincing evidence. Anyone being emphatic doesn't necessarily mean something is true, but that is the world we live in. Someone who tells a confidence game convinces quite a few people. I do also think P.H. Nargeolet was kind of playing a numbers game, in a way trying to set the Guinness Book of World Records. Every time he goes down to the Titanic, it's another number. And so I think in a way that was the ego thing that was going on with him. That was his ego trip. Number 2, I wanted to be an astronaut until I realized all the cool stuff is actually underwater. This was a comment Stockton Rush made during his presentation to the Explorers Club in New York, which we've actually dealt with on this channel a long time ago. Remember this.
And I wasn't going to get to Jupiter or Mars, but I did realize that all the cool stuff that I thought was out there is actually underwater.
It's interesting that neither of the documentaries really covered this area, which is actually an investigative area, and I guess it's the forte in a way of true crime to find out what really is going on in terms of a particular narrative. But in 2017, that is not what Stockton Rush told The Independent in this interview. He said, I've always wanted to become an astronaut, but I didn't after my aerospace degree from Princeton and engineering work on the U.S. fighter program. He was told that his eyesight wouldn't make the cut to be an Air Force pilot. So in this documentary, the story is that he just changed his mind. In this article, the story is that his eyesight was the issue. But based on my investigation, I'm not actually sure whether that is accurate either. I'm not convinced that this is the real reason Stockton Rush didn't become an astronaut, although I am convinced that he really, really did want to become an astronaut and was on that sort of trajectory. I mean, he even attended the Virgin Galactic launch and, was with Richard Branson, being, I guess, inspired by his vision. And that whole thing about wanting to be Captain Kirk and being inspired by Star Wars, I believe that was real. But I don't think it was eyesight that prevented him from taking the next step. And I see I'm not the only one who has doubts about this. In this article from engineering.com, they did some additional background sniffing around, and they say that Rush is never photographed with glasses, even in 1962, before the advent of contact lenses and laser eye surgery. So if his eyesight wasn't really an issue, what was? Well, I think I know the answer. Does anyone here remember what we discovered in that regard in Stockton Rush's backstory? There is a sort of true crime-ish element to it. Anyway, number 3, it was this marvel.
When I first saw it on the dock, it was kind of this marvel.
Are you fucking kidding me?
I'm serious. I don't know about you, but to me, the Titan is the least cool looking submersible I think I've ever seen. I mean, look at the Nautil here. Compare the Titan to the others that are out there. Alvin, Challenger Deep, the Mir 1 and 2, Shinkai, and again the Nautil. Titan is kind of dinky. It's like a hollow pipe with very little else. Doesn't look anything like a spaceship, and that didn't impress me. It doesn't even have seats. If the whole thing had been made out of titanium, it might have been a little bit more interesting. Number 4, it's pretty much invulnerable.
Where is your excitement factor on this?
Oh, definitely an 11. It is, right. By the time we're done testing it, I believe it's pretty much invulnerable.
And that's pretty much what they said about the Titanic.
That's right.
Big talk and laughing. Is that how you strut your stuff and show that you're the master of the universe? You sort of scoff at the science, laugh, and make big statements. I must say, I recognize much, if not most of the footage, the clips, the interviews from my own real-time coverage, and this made Implosion, certainly for me, feel kind of like a rerun, even though what they were covering was authentic and important. What I was looking for, though, was a fresh way of looking at a familiar story.
Oh, the lights are off.
I see the bottom. I don't think we're touching it.
We had a bit of issue with one of the battery banks. Stockton had mentioned we're not seeing full vertical thruster availability.
So much for invulnerable. Stockton once told a nodding David Pogue that the main thing is the pressure vessel. Get that right, and everything else can fail.
There's certain things that you want to be buttoned down, and that's the pressure vessel. Once the pressure vessel is, you're certain it's not going to collapse on everybody, everything else can fail.
Imagine buying a car or flying in an aircraft, except you're paying through the nose, and the builder is telling you, well, at least the structure of the vessel is safe. And of course, eventually it fails catastrophically, so not even that was true. On Dive 47 in the Bahamas, the lights of the Titan failed along with other issues. Really, you want to be at the bottom of the ocean in the dark with no light as well. When Lockridge said there were issues with every single component, he wasn't kidding. Anyway, that brings us to Implosion on Discovery versus Titan on Netflix. Which is better? Well, I like that they raised this idea about whether it's an accident or a crime right in the beginning. It's raised early, and I think people forget that we may well be dealing with a level of negligence that was criminal, and the possibility of criminal charges as well. The U.S. Coast Guard final report is imminent. It's due out any day now. I didn't love Implosion showing us the USCG investigators getting up in the morning, getting dressed in their hotel rooms. I know what they're trying to do. It just, to me, seemed a little fluffy, like they were trying to pad a thin story. And this documentary is really about half the length as the one on Netflix. I also think they could have chosen better interviewees in Implosion, and of course the number one draft pick in my book is David Lockridge, perhaps a contest between him and James Cameron. Instead, Implosion used this guy and this guy. Netflix's coverage of the Bahamas dive I also thought was better. In Implosion, it's narrated, we're told what happened rather than shown through incredible footage of Stockton filming himself, which we saw on the Netflix documentary, including his responses to the hull snapping, crackling and popping. In Implosion, do we ever actually hear those popping noises? If you watched the hearing, or in my case covered it in real time, a review, even a brief review, simply ends up being a repetition, and although important, it ends up being a tad dull. So which documentary is better?
Your entrance was good, his was better.
So in this sense, as well as the others mentioned, the Netflix documentary gets my vote for being the better documentary. And as I've said before, I really think it's going to win an award, and I think it deserves an award. If you watched both, what did you think? Not going to take it further than that. Thank you for listening. Look out for a link to the playlist coming up in a second, and I'll see you guys next time.